Live from the Dolby Theater at Hollywood and Highland, it's the Oscars. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonathan Paula.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the 89th Annual Academy Awards. We have plenty of fun surprises and great talent in store for you tonight. And I'm being told we're already running over on time, so let's get right to tonight's final category, Best Picture. And the nominees are Amy Adams Talks to an Octopus, Stage Play, the movie, Saving Private Spider-Man, Captain Kirk Robs a Bank, Math Defeats Racism, Hollywood Circle Jerk, Google Earth Knows Where You Live, Depressing Massachusetts, and Boyhood, but with a black kid. And the Oscar goes to... This is Movie Night! Hello and welcome to the 7th Annual Movie Night Oscar Special. I'm your host, Jonathan Paula. Tonight I'll be reviewing all 9 Best Picture nominees, and at the end of the show I'll be sharing my predictions and favorites for which actors and films will take home a trophy during the 89th Annual Academy Awards, which air live this Sunday night on ABC. As always, if you enjoy my content, please like the video, share it on social media, or pledge a couple dollars to me on Patreon. It really does make a difference. To help keep things brief, my reviews tonight will be shorter than usual, and we begin in alphabetical order with Arrival. Challenging and intriguing. Based off Ten Chang's novella, Story of Your Life, this PG-13 rated picture quadrupled its $47 million budget following its November release in 2016. When mysterious alien spacecraft appear around the world, linguistics professor Amy Adams attempts to decipher their language and intentions. Nominated for 8 Oscars, it's criminal that Adams' resilient performance wasn't one of them, as her powerful delivery is the true bedrock to this picture. This is a beautiful, downright poetic story with meaning and purpose, but it's not always entertaining or fulfilling. The believable writing carefully examines humanity's reaction to first contact with a seemingly benevolent alien species that kept me guessing until the end. Thematically, the concepts of palindromatic existence, accepting your fate, and conquering doubt are all poignantly examined. Adams plainly lays this out when she asks, if you could see your whole life from start to finish, would you change things? While some might feel this motif is a bit too heavy-handed, others will undoubtedly connect to the film in a meaningful way. Personally, I was somewhere in the middle. This was a thought-provoking drama with an artistic slant, but I never truly connected to the story on an emotional level. For the last 3 seasons, my favorite film of the year has been a high-concept sci-fi drama. Unfortunately, that streak won't be continuing with this 116-minute feature, as it just isn't as special or as memorable as I would have hoped. Like director Denis Villeneuve's other works, I was impressed by the technical accomplishments and visual artistry, but left somewhat unsatisfied. Arrival is also the first of tonight's 3 featured movies, so let's read some of your thoughts. Praising its intellectual writing and performances, you felt Arrival was an awesome film. With contemplative purpose, I thought it was a great movie. Nothing more. Next up, my review of Fences. A powerful play. Doubling its $24 million budget following its December 16, 2016 release, this drama film stars Viola Davis and Denzel Washington, who also directed. The PG-13 rated story focuses on a working-class African-American father in 1950s Pittsburgh, who comes to terms with fatherhood in life. The dialogue is expertly written, but also relentlessly delivered, making the film's pacing, especially early on, somewhat exhausting. Fences is adapted from the late August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize-winning play of the same name, and it definitely feels like it. The 139-minute story is told in 3 very distinct acts, with nearly all of the action confined, somewhat detrimentally, to a small suburban backyard, between, you guessed it, a bunch of fences. Now, I suspect this title is a metaphorical double entendre vis-a-vis implied emotional barriers, but thematically the teleplay seems to focus more on death and trust instead. So perhaps it's just a literal description of the movie's primary setting and nothing else? In fact, rather than remain closed off from one another, the deeply rich and complex characters often expose their innermost frustrations in intensely emotional monologues. Davis's angry confession that she's forfeited her personal dreams to settle down as a housewife is the most impressive work of her illustrious career, as she screams defensively, "I gave 18 years of my life to stand in the same spot as you!" Both her and Washington reprised the roles that scored them Tony Awards during the play's 2010 Broadway revival, and their tour de force work here rightly netted them another pair of Oscar nominations. Ultimately, Fences doesn't really do enough to justify its existence as a motion picture. Save for a handful of shots and a mid-act montage, Washington set up some basic camera angles and let the story play out exactly as it would on stage. But since this isn't the type of play I'd ever see in person, I for one am thankful it was translated into a more convenient medium. Objectively, from a cinematic perspective, Fences is not particularly engaging, but thanks to its show-stopping performances and a deeply personal screenplay, it is a great movie. Third tonight, Hacksaw Ridge. A moving true story. After receiving a 10-minute standing ovation at its Venice Film Festival premiere in September 2016, this biographical war drama took home over 4 times its $40 million budget. His first film in a full decade, this is a triumphant return to form for disgraced director Mel Gibson, whose steadfast efforts helped score the film one of its 6 Oscar nominations. While it's doubtful he'll win, it definitely seems like the Academy is ready to let the once revered auteur out of the doghouse. Andrew Garfield portrays the incredible real-life story of conscientious objecting Army medic Desmond Doss, who saves dozens of lives in an extremely bloody battle during the Pacific War. Garfield portrays this almost unbelievably heroic individual with a healthy dose of humility and anxiety, as anything less would make him appear superhuman. He defends his peaceful intentions by stating, "With the world so set on tearing itself apart, it don't seem like such a bad thing to me to want to put a little bit of it back together." We're eased into the ferocity and violence of the final act with some effective humor and lighter moments thanks to Drill Sergeant Vince Vaughn during a boot camp sequence that exhibits shades of Full Metal Jacket. And at a lengthier 139 minutes, this staggered pacing helps immensely. Although moments feel a bit too heavy-handed, especially those regarding sudden religious clarity, this is a strikingly powerful drama that invokes authentic contemplation. Emotional investments aside, the loud and gritty battles are photographed with such uncomfortable realism they give Saving Private Ryan a run for their money. Now, an R-rated production that sells this imagery as entertainment is inherently a contradiction of the film's pacifist themes, but the message is still a valuable one. Those are my thoughts, so let's see what you had to say about Hacksaw Ridge in the YouTube comments. Hacksaw Ridge is the best war film in decades and an unflinching experience. Everyone agreed it is an awesome movie. Now, Hell or High Water. A taut drama. Directed by David Mackenzie, this $12 million neo-western crime thriller took home $32 million after its August 12th release in 2016. Divorced father Chris Pine and his ex-con brother Ben Foster resort to a bank robbing scheme in order to save their family's ranch, while lawman Jeff Bridges attempts to hunt them down. Pine defends his desperate intentions by explaining, "I've been poor my whole life, like a disease passing from generation to generation, but not my boys, not anymore." The 102-minute narrative unravels without any major twists or surprises. Events and dialogue are presented in a low-key, matter-of-fact style. The New Mexican locations are a convincing substitute for West Texas, with the scenery of the desert landscape possessing a sort of solemn beauty to it. Despite its modern-day setting, this looks and feels like an old-fashioned Western. The cleanly structured and buttoned-up screenplay isn't particularly imaginative, but it does convince audiences to empathize with characters on both sides of the law. Bridges is as much the hero of this story as Pine is, and the respectful antagonism between them makes for a tense and satisfying final scene. A fascinating story with predictably excellent acting, the R-rated film never reaches that unique quality of being special or meaningful. But it's a compelling story with some thrilling moments involving redeemable anti-heroes. Hell or High Water might be my least favorite nominee this year, but it's still a really cool film. 4 down and 5 to go, here's my review of Hidden Figures. Enjoyable, if safe. Theodore Melfi's 127-minute biographical drama did surprisingly well during its Christmas debut in 2016, eventually earning $165 million against its $25 million budget. Based on the nonfiction book of the same name by Margaret Lee Shetterly, the Oscar-nominated screenplay shares the heretofore untold true story about African-American women working as mathematicians at NASA during the 1960s space race. The diverse cast is stacked with recognizable talent, with Taraji P. Henson handling lead duties with a feisty demeanor. Maligned as an outcast her entire life, it's an impassioned speech about convenient access to nearby restrooms that resonates the strongest. Manager Kevin Costner responds to this rant by reminding his employees, "Here at NASA, we all pee the same color." But it's Octavia Spencer in a similar position who scored herself a Best Supporting Actress nomination. These are brave women taking on thankless tasks in a challenging world, and pitted against the narrative's familiar, stubbornly racist and myopic antagonists, it's easy to root for them to succeed and overcome. The PG-13 rated film tackles an uncomfortable period in American history with a fun, smile-inducing story, even if some creative liberties are taken to make things more Hollywood. Combine some excellent performances with a standard civil rights boilerplate, and the result is a feel-good biopic with likable characters. Hidden Figures makes an important issue relatively entertaining, even if it doesn't do quite enough to rise above its predictable genre. I think it's a great movie. Next up, La La Land. Inspires with song and dance. Following up his impressive breakthrough with 2014's Whiplash, writer and director Damien Chazelle has once again created a truly engrossing environment that mixes sight and sound in a positively fabulous way. After its December 9th release, this musical romantic dramedy received a record-tying 14 Academy Award nominations, including the elusive Big Five: Best Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay. The PG-13 rated production also earned more than 11 times its $30 million budget. In modern-day Los Angeles, Ryan Gosling, an aspiring jazz pianist, falls for Emma Stone, a fledgling actress. While their characters are certainly compelling and their physique easy on the eyes, Gosling and Stone are unfortunately the only categories I see preventing La La Land from an unprecedented Oscars sweep. Well, that and the fact that the movie is nominated against itself in the Best Song category. Their performances are relatable and touching, don't get me wrong, but for this type of active musical narrative, I'm not sure they were the absolute best fit for the material. Speaking of the music though, it's one catchy number after the next, with the toe-tapping Another Day of Sun, to the hopeful The Fools Who Dream, to the romantic ballad City of Stars. The film also includes one dreamlike sequence that draws obvious inspiration from the Gene Kelly musicals of the 1950s, a la An American in Paris or Singin' in the Rain. La La Land is a lyrical, often critical look at Hollywood culture, including its obsessive fandom, vindictive behavior, and dismissive practices, with Gosling describing his fellow Los Angelinos by saying, "They worship everything and they value nothing," a particularly accurate if damaging description. A scene where Stone is rudely interrupted during an emotional audition cuts particularly deep, as we feel like we're right in the room alongside her. Although the 2-hour and 8-minute experience may seem a bit self-indulgent and overly nostalgic, it's undeniably fun, feel-good cinema. A wonderfully enjoyable throwback, La La Land earns its place among 2016's best, with gorgeous visuals, compelling characters, and memorable music. And it's also our final featured review tonight, so let's hear some of your thoughts.
City of stars, there's so much that I can't see.
This seemed to be the movie night audience favorite, with a majority of you rating this a 10 out of 10. Simultaneously heartbreaking as well as inspiring, this is an awesome film, especially for fans of old Hollywood. Now, my review of Lion. Unbelievably captivating. This $12 million biographical drama from first-time director Garth Davis received 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and took home $76 million at the box office. Based on the incredible true story of its protagonist, the 118-minute narrative is adapted from his memoir, A Long Way Home. After accidentally boarding a train that transports him 1,000 miles away from his remote village, a small Indian boy is adopted by a loving Australian couple. 25 years later, he uses modern technology to search for his lost family. Dev Patel might be the obvious choice to play an Indian character in an Australian language movie, but his portrayal is exemplary, balancing torment with stubborn determination. Sunny Parwar, meanwhile, is positively fantastic playing Patel's childhood counterpart in the movie's subtitled first half. Beneath his adorable face and innocent behavior, he portrays this frightened and confused boy with true resilience. Here is an absolutely unthinkable tragedy that no Western viewer could ever truly comprehend, but thanks to Patel and Parwar's delicate portrayal and Davis' steadfast direction, we at least can appreciate a portion of what this ordeal would have been like. It also invites reflection upon your own memories. Without proper nouns, how much could you accurately remember from a place you haven't been to since you were 5 years old? Patel conveys this sense of helplessness well, and more than deserves his Best Supporting Actor nomination. Paradoxically, the PG-13 rated film's most effective scene is the one that usually never works, filming a character silently reading a computer screen. But thanks to Dustin O'Halloran and Hashuka's building score and deft editing, this Google Earth montage is surprisingly powerful. Lion is a gripping account of a heartbreaking true story with a very emotional climax. One of the absolute best films of the year. I thought it was awesome. My penultimate review tonight is for Manchester by the Sea. A sobering look at life and death. Written and directed by Kenneth Lonergan, this $8.5 million drama did surprisingly well following its wide release in December 2016, receiving widespread critical acclaim and $60 million in ticket sales. When his brother dies suddenly, Casey Affleck is asked to take care of his teenage nephew, Lucas Hedges. Set against a backdrop of its drab wintertime setting in the titular New England town, the 2-hour and 17-minute feature is carefully photographed with long takes and waist-high wide shots. There's nothing showy or artistic about the treatment, as Lonergan allows his cast to deliver their tearful and restrained monologues without hindrance or artifice. Manchester by the Sea impresses thanks to these raw performances, especially Affleck's challenging role. This is a character that experienced unthinkable tragedy, who has resigned himself to lifelong depression by confessing, "I can't beat it. I can't beat it." Opposite, the young Hedges is a breakout talent, exhibiting glimpses of real understanding. In addition to the brilliant work from Michelle Williams, 3 of the R-rated movie's 6 Academy Award nominations were for acting. This film is not uplifting or even enjoyable, but somehow still necessary and relatable. Anyone who's ever experienced a loss will be able to connect to the movie's cold and resigned approach to death. Manchester by the Sea is a heartbreaking drama thanks to its understated performances. Not exactly one I'm eager to revisit, I still thought it was very great. And last but not least, Moonlight. Moving and relatable. The recipient of 8 Oscar nominations, this Barry Jenkins coming-of-age drama film earned over 4 times its $20 million budget following a fall release in 2016. The 111-minute story chronicles the life of a young black man as he struggles to find his place and understand his sexual identity. Alex Hibbert, Ashton Sanders, and Trevante Rhodes take on the daunting task of portraying this complex character at 3 pivotal stages in his life, during childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, respectively. Mahershala Ali only appears during the first act, but is fantastic as a drug dealer turned nurturing father figure. He guides his new young friend by reminding him, "At some point you gotta decide for yourself who you're gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you." Based on the play In Moonlight, Black Boys Look Blue by Terrell Alvin McCraney, the R-rated narrative is a very understated read-between-the-lines type of story. Things aren't spelled out, with the most important moments happening during emotional pauses and deliberate silences, like a tender act of physical intimacy between friends on a moonlit beach. Whether you're black, white, straight, or gay, growing up and discovering who you are is a very human experience everyone can find some commonality with, and this beautifully shot motion picture really taps into that. Powerful performances and a deeply human story propel this contained indie film to award-winning heights. For patient audiences, Moonlight is an awesome movie. Now that you've heard my reviews on each film, here's how they all rank against each other when I expand my ratings to a 100-point scale. Although nothing was quite strong enough to grab my highest rating, Lion came the closest, there weren't any outliers either. Plus, in a 180 from last year, this crop of nominees features lots of minority talent, resulting in a strong and diverse group of films. But now it's time to make some predictions and name favorites in the top categories. As I've embarrassingly only seen one of the 5 Best Actress films, we'll skip over that award this year and go right to my pick for Best Actor, Casey Affleck. Call it a hometown bias, but Affleck's quiet and restrained depression made Manchester by the Sea a real powerful experience. That said, Denzel won the SAG Award in this category, which is usually a clear indicator of Oscar victory, so bet on him Sunday night. Either way, it'll be nice to see this one go to a fictional character for a change, as 5 of the last 6 winners all portrayed real-life people. I love a good comeback story, and Hacksaw Ridge really was one of the best directed films of the year, so while I'd love to see Mel Gibson win for Best Director, I don't think Hollywood has fully forgiven him yet, as La La Land's Damien Chazelle is likely to take home that Oscar. Because let's make one thing clear, besides the acting categories, this is La La Land's year. With an astonishing 14 nominations, it'd be foolish and almost disrespectful to award the top prize to any other film. Personally, I'm totally okay with that. I enjoyed the movie and will be happy to see it win. But when push comes to shove, I think Lion was 2016's real Best Picture. I hope you're just as excited for the upcoming Oscars telecast as I am, which I'll be live tweeting from @JohnPaula as I do every year. Following the ceremony on Monday morning, I'll also share my annual post-Oscars recap and highlights video to John's World, so please subscribe to that channel to see the video when it's released. Well, that concludes my 7th annual Oscars special. I'll be back in 2 weeks to kick off March of the Monsters, a trio of episodes dedicated to creature features, which begins with the entire embarrassingly enjoyable Anaconda series. Leave your review below of any of these films if you'd like to be included on the next episode. And until then, you can click this information icon to check out some related videos. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thanks for watching, and have a good movie night.